Hey guys, and welcome to a special edition of the Pagnotta Take on Sports. As you guys know, I'm a huge New York Ranger fan, and this past week we did lose in Game 7 to the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, in order to keep the regular weekly show from mostly focusing on that, I am going to do a special here, and I hope that plenty of New York Ranger fans will check it out, and even if you're not a New York Ranger fan, you'll check it out and give it a like and tell your friends if you can. We'll start with the season recap for the Rangers. Their regular season, they won 53 games, the most they've won since 1994 when they won the Stanley Cup. And, that was something that I think people put a lot of stock into, that we were that good. You hear all those things of, they always put those stats up that, if you win these, the last time you won these many games, you won the Cup. So, it got people pretty happy. And we also won the President's Cup with 113 points, which I thought was great. We had home ice advantage throughout the playoffs no matter what in that case. And, we took advantage of it the first two series, but not so much in the last series. So overall, the regular season was pretty good. We had some moments where we had some questions that were definitely needed to be answered, especially in goal after the injury to Henrik Lundqvist. People were questioning whether or not Cam Talbot would be able to step up and take over in goal, and I thought Cam did a great job coming out and keeping us in contention with the way he played. He played great. And when Lundqvist came back, we were able to keep up the momentum and get that President's Cup. And I know many people said that the momentum was taken away when we brought back Henrik Lundqvist, but I don't think it really dropped off that much. I think it still was, we kept the momentum well enough that, we got the President's Cup. I mean, I don't think it would have been any better if Cam would have been in there. We faced some pretty tough opponents late in the year, and, I don't see how people could ask for more than that. And we also had a couple of questions that need to be answered after the trade that we made. During the trade deadline, many people were wondering whether or not we would go out and get maybe someone to win face-offs, and instead we actually went out and got another defenseman to try to shore up the back end. And at the time, I actually thought it was a great trade going after Keith Yandel for what we gave up. I know it was a little bit pricey, the draft pick that we had to give up. That was the only part of the actual trade that I did not like. But, giving away guys like Anthony Duclair is tough, but I know Duclair had trouble with showing consistent effort apparently in the minors. That's what they had been saying. And also, we gave up John Moore, which was a tough defenseman to have to give away. He had really come to his own during the playoffs last year. He actually became a consistent threat, and at the time I thought it was actually a great trade, but now I'm starting to question it because Yandel in the playoffs really, he might have been our worst defenseman. I actually think he was. He just didn't show up. It didn't seem like he was ready to play. I know maybe the lack of playoff experience, having been with the Phoenix Coyotes and not really seeing a deep playoff run, maybe hindered him a little bit, but he just, there were times where he just seemed to be lost on the ice. He was in bad defensive positions. He turned the puck over in just inopportune times and on plays that shouldn't have been turnovers, just whiffing on the puck and stuff that not even rookies make. And that was part of the reason why I believe that if we would have kept the other two guys, I think we would have been all right. There were a couple of other minor trades that we made. We did get rid of Lee Stepniak to the Jets, and we did acquire a young man named Carl Klinsberg, who ended up playing for our minor league team, and I believe a draft pick. And I forget, I don't remember who we traded away, but we got James Shepard and Chris Summers. Summers played very sparingly, and he wasn't the only times he really played. He didn't play all that great. And we got James Shepard, who I thought wasn't great, but fit in nicely, especially in the playoffs. And he ended up having a goal in game number 6 against the Lightning. So, I thought it was good for him. Injuries, that was a huge part, especially in the playoffs. We talked about the Lundqvist injury during the regular season, and I think that hurt a little bit. Well, once we got to the playoffs, we thought if we could stay healthy, we'd be good. But in the first round series, a fluke play on a shot from the point by Ryan McDonough that hit Matt Zuccarello in the head, and Zuccarello, it wasn't he was not able to come back. And, there were people trolling the Rangers on Twitter saying that they were, faking the injury and that he was, he wasn't actually injured. We were just using it as an excuse, which would make no sense. Why would we take someone off the ice and just not use them? That's one of our best players. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That would make no sense. But he ended up having a severe injury, and it came out actually today that he had actually lost his memory and was not able to speak for a couple of days after the injury, and he currently is still going to speech therapy, but they said that he should be able to come back and play next year, which is the good news for him. And then also afterwards, we found out the injuries to Mark Stahl, who had been injured sometime during the regular season and actually had a hairline fracture in his ankle, which doesn't sound too severe, but especially for defensemen who do most of their skate, I would say the most out of anyone, especially having to get back on some of these plays against these guys like Tyler Johnson and Alexander Ovechkin, who have great speed that we played against. I think it definitely affected Stahl. I think it slowed him down. But he still played well, and you just wonder if that was part of the reason why he was so slow throughout the playoffs. Dan Girardi, we found out he actually is going to have an off-season ankle surgery done, and I believe the injury to him took place off one of the shots from Alexander Ovechkin in the Washington series. It was either him or John Carlson that he took a shot off, and he came off the ice for a couple of shifts and then came back on. And at the time, it didn't seem like anything major, but now we know he has to have a procedure done. And same thing for Ryan McDonough. Now, I don't know if he has any procedures that have to be done. I actually don't know what ended up being wrong with Ryan McDonough in Game 7. I don't think it was ever actually released, and if it was, if anyone could just hit me up on Twitter and tell me what exactly that injury was, because I did not see that. I believe maybe it was an illness of some sort. All I know is that he didn't play until late in the first period. I believe his first shift was with about 5 minutes left in the first period, and the rest of that period and really the second period, he seemed really slow and just didn't seem like he was moving well on the ice. And then the third period, he seemed to try to let it go and just keep fighting, but just wasn't able to bring in the effort that we really needed. And from there, the season did end with the Lightning. Some great memories, of course, from the season, though, that we have to remember. Of course, the great Game 7 goal by Derek Stepan to beat Washington that actually got us to that series. And, the fact that we were able to get to a Game 7 there was just, amazing the way they had beaten Lundqvist in back-to-back games, 6 goals in back-to-back games, and he was able to fight back, and he played a great Game 7, I thought. We were just unable to really get into their zone and get shots on goal, which is definitely unacceptable. By no means am I saying it is acceptable. That or Game 5. We're playing on our home ice, and we should be controlling the puck. We should be in our zone. We should be taking more shots. And, I know Pierre Maguire of NBC, no one likes him. I can't stand him. I think he's just an absolute... I don't really know how else to put it. He's just a hockey nerd, and he's just annoying with all his facts that he wants to bring out. But he actually had a good point when he said that the Rangers were too tentative on the power play. They're just trying to look for that superstar goal at the side of the net. They need to just start taking shots and screening the goaltender. That's something we haven't really done since we lost Sean Avery. He was one of the great screeners of the goaltender, and since that point, our power play has actually dropped off ever since he left. And then we'll move on. After the season was over, a lot of the talk started to shift towards the free agents. Now, the Rangers have 2 major free agents that are out there, Derek Stepan and Carl Hagelin. Now, both of them are restricted free agents, which is the good news, which means we get the chance to sign them. If someone else was to give them a contract, we actually get an opportunity to match that contract. I'd like to see both of them come back. I think Stepan's a very good young center. The only thing that I wish he would work on, and I know he's going to probably work on a lot this offseason, will be his face-offs. He did have a little bit of trouble with that. So did most of the team. Dominic Moore was the only real consistent face-off winner for the Rangers. But I think Stepan is a guy we got to keep. He really fits well on that team. He's been there since he started his career. He works well with the line that he's put on with Kreider and Faust, who's also a free agent, but I'll get him in just a minute. But I think he's one of the guys. He's a young piece that we need to keep there, and I really hope that Glenn Sather will find a way to keep him there. And the same thing with Carl Hagelin, who I think is matured and become a better player. He's always had the speed, and we've known that, but I think he's learned how to control it. I noticed Game 7 he was a little bit. I don't know if he was nervous or what was going on, but he had fallen down a couple of times. But other than that, he was really a leader on the ice for the Rangers, and the speed is unbelievable. Of course, he's developed a pretty good wrist shot, and he's becoming a scrappier player. He doesn't he likes to go to the front. He'll take some hits from these guys in front, and he'll even dish out some hits. So he's another guy that I think they have to keep. And you see pictures of him, and he has his little thing, his little special that he had been doing with Matt Zuccarello and Derek Brassard, where they were going around New York City. I mean, he is really a friendly guy on that team, and those guys get along really, really well. So he's a guy that I think we also need to keep. Now, there's two younger players that are also restricted free agents. You got Jesper Foss, who I just talked about just a minute ago. I'll get into more of him in a minute. And then you have JT Miller, another young winger that really showed up late in the playoffs. He had that great Game 6, was part of that 13-point line for the Rangers in Game 6. He was on that line with Brassard and Nash, and I think that would be a line that you would want to start the year with next year because Miller's an up-and-coming young player. We had heard that he was going to be special, but he never really came to, not like we thought he was going to come to. We thought he was going to be a superstar, and it never really turned out to be like that. He hasn't really turned out to be a superstar, but I think in the playoffs he's shown that he, no matter what line he's on, he's going to play hard. And he's one of those guys that's not afraid to get in there, and if someone wants to start pushing around with him, he'll drop the gloves and fight you, which is what I like about him. I love his grittiness. He can hit. He's gets to loose pucks, and to me, he reminds me a little bit of Kreider. He's similar to Kreider. He's not the same exact player as Kreider. Won't hit as much, but he's a similar, maybe not as talented version of Kreider, but definitely a guy that I think we need to keep it because he's going to be a guy that could really fit in well with that line of Brassard and Nash, and he could become one of our better players next year. Jesper Foss is another interesting young player. He plays on that line with Stepan and Brassard. That line really got stronger as the playoffs went on. I know Foss, when he first came up, he had trouble finding a line, but I really did like him as we moved on in the season. I thought he was great on the penalty kill. When he was out there on the penalty kill towards the end of the season, I think he was actually taken off the penalty kill for Hagelin, and Nash was out there playing a little bit, but I think he's definitely another young player that's on the rise and that we need to keep in New York. And that's another line that's got to stay together. I think Kreider really likes playing with him, and I think Stepan likes playing with them. And, he's another guy that, he's not always the most physical guy. He won't always throw the body around, but when he does, it can energize the team. He's got some good speed. His shot is pretty good, and he's another one that gets right in front and will scrap for pucks. He's not afraid to get in there and try to get some of those loose pucks on the tap-ins. As for the trade possibilities, we all know the biggest trade possibility this offseason is Cam Talbot, the backup goaltender. There have been teams that have inquired about him already. The most notable was a story that came out today that I saw, which is the fact that the Rangers may be looking to trade him to the Blues. Now, the Blues already have a flurry of goaltenders. I believe they have 2 or 3 that are actually that have played sometime in the NHL, and now they're reportedly looking to try to get Talbot. Someone said that Nash was involved in the trade, but I don't think that's going to happen. The one that I'm seeing the most likely would be Talbot and Boyle, maybe a draft pick for the young Blues winger TJ Oshie, which I think would be a good pickup, but I don't know if giving up that much for Oshie would really be worth it. I know Oshie is a good young player, but he's not even really the superstar on that team at this point. He scores goals, but when it comes to the playoffs, he seems really non-existent. So, it would, in some areas, it would make sense, especially with the fact that Marty St. Louis is a free agent as well. This offseason, we got a couple other guys in Shepard and Hunwick that'll be free agents. They'll probably be gone. I wouldn't doubt it. But St. Louis, I think most people would think that Oshie would fill that St. Louis role because I don't think they're going to bring him back. And then if they do end up letting JT Miller and Jesper Foss both walk, those are two wingers that are gone. So at that point, you would have to fill it. Maybe they're thinking Oshie would be the way to fill it. I would hope they're not thinking about letting Foss and Miller go already. But at this point, for it to come out this early into the offseason is where I start to question whether or not they would end up, letting those guys go and bringing in TJ Oshie. And my pick for a trade that I think a person we should trade would be Keith Yandle. See what's out there. I know there's probably not a whole lot of teams that would be interested in trying to get him, but the most enticing thing I would say about him to other teams would be that he does have a one-year contract. Unlike all our other defensemen, I know Klein would be another one that some teams may look at. That would be the only other one I would trade. McDonough, of course, I would not trade. He is our captain. He's our best defenseman. He may have been our best player in the playoffs. In my mind, maybe besides Kreider and Lundqvist, of course. And Girardi you wouldn't trade, and you wouldn't trade or Stahl either. But I would look to see what people would offer for him. I'd put him out there. I don't know if there'd be any hits on him to try to take him, but I know we definitely got to try to get rid of some of our defensemen. Not maybe get rid of, but try to trade them off for something, because we do have some younger talent that will be getting ready to come up. And I move on to the minor league guys that many people think may be called up. Ryan Graves is the main guy that people are saying may be called up. He had a great QMJHL postseason. So he's still in the Quebec Minor Junior Hockey League. He had a couple of goals. I saw a couple of highlights of him scoring goals, and he really looks like a good player. He's a guy that's aggressive offensively, which is something that Vigneault will definitely like. And I'd like to see him take the place of Boyle. That would make sense. I know Dan Boyle's the most likely to be traded, so he would end up probably taking the place of him. And I think he would be a good fit up there from what I've seen. He looks like he's offensive. I haven't really seen if he's got a physical side, but to me he looks like he's going to be a good young player. And another one is a draft pick we had a long time ago. I believe it was back in 2008, a first rounder that is still in the minor leagues. We saw him a little bit early in the year. I believe he played the first game of the season against the Blues. His name is Dylan McElrath. He's a big defenseman. He's more into hitting. He's not really a goal scorer, but he's a big time hitter. He's someone who can brawl. He is a big time fighter. He actually did get into a fight in the first game of the year against the Blues. Which was a rarity for Ranger fans to see. It was very rare that we saw an actual fight this season. But I think he needs his chance. He's been in the minor leagues long enough. I think from what I saw watching him early in the year, he looks like he's NHL ready. I know he's a different style than what Vigneault wants, but I think we have to get some bigger players, especially on the back end, people that can knock people from in front of the net, because I know, guys like Stahl and Girardi are getting older, so it's harder to clear some of these bigger, younger talents out of the front of the net. And it seems that these teams that end up beating us, they have these bigger guys that can just bully our defensemen and our wingers. And I think bringing up a guy like McElrath, who's big and strong, would definitely help us along the way. And I think that would make, it makes sense to have him on the back end. I think that would be where you can maybe put him in if you can get rid of Yandel, or maybe if Graves isn't ready yet, you could kind of switch him and Graves out and see what you could do there. And another one, many people are saying that we definitely need to get a face-off man. I am one of those people that says we do need to. And going out and, of course, looking on the free agent market, you can. There's not going to be a whole lot of hits, I don't believe. I don't really know who is out there. But from what I've heard, this offseason is not going to be that great for free agents. But the Rangers do have a great young center in the minor leagues. We saw him a little bit again in the regular season. I think it was around mid-year. Oscar Lindbergh came up, and he played well. He's one of the top face-off men in the AHL, so that's what I would look at right there. And I could see him bringing him up, maybe moving him somewhere, maybe on the fourth line to start out and see if he can't win face-offs there, and then move him up to another line or something like that. But he's going to be a good young player. Many people believe he's one of our hotter prospects in the minor leagues, and I think it is time to bring him up because we need a face-off winner, because that was one of the things in the playoffs that we struggled with. I mean, even in the Game 7 win against Washington, that face-off wasn't cleanly won. We had to scrap for it, which was usually the times we won the face-offs. There were clean face-off wins. Most of them came from Dominic Moore. Late on, they started moving JT Miller in there, but most of the clean wins came from Dominic Moore. The rest of them, Brassard and Stepan struggled to win face-offs. So Lindbergh, I think, would be a great fit up in the NHL, and I would love to see them bring him up and give him a chance. And from there, we transition and we'll look towards next year. I know right now we don't have a whole lot of pieces. Of course, we still got to go through the draft. I don't think we're going to get anyone of significance because we don't have a first-round pick. We traded that in the Marty St. Louis trade with Callahan. So at this point, I don't see us getting someone that's going to come in and immediately be a role player. And as for free agency, I don't know where our targets are at. I don't think we're really targeting anyone huge. I don't think there's anyone really big out there. No one of extreme significance. There may be a few guys that are talented that may end up being free agents, but at this point I don't know. The only rumor that we really have is the Oshie trade, and from what I'm hearing, I actually wouldn't want that trade to go through. I think we should keep what we have there. But look towards next year. I think you gotta say, if we can keep the guys that I had said we can keep, which is basically just keep our restricted free agents, let our unrestricted free agents walk. I would really hope they can keep the Stepan and Kreider and Foss line together. The Brassard, Nash, and Miller line, I think, needs to stay together, but I do think that they need to put Brassard on the wing. I know it's hard because Brassard is good in the middle when it comes to bringing it up the ice, but I think putting him at the wing would really fit him well, and I think you move Miller to center and allow him to take face-offs. I think then you can move Dominic Moore onto the third line, and I think you put him up there with Hayes on the wing and Hagelin. I think you keep that line together. I'd really like that line when they played together, and from there I think you can move Lindbergh up and keep him on that fourth line. With whoever ends up on that fourth line, there are a couple of players. There could be some other minor league call-ups that could come up and play on that line. I know Tanner Glass is still going to be there, as well as who else played with Glass? Who was it? They had St. Louis there. They had Miller there, so that area could be open as well. They might end up signing someone. They might end up bringing in a guy like Danny Cristo, who's another young player in the minor leagues. That could end up coming up. He's a young goal scorer. So, there's plenty of options that we have. And on the back end, of course, I would definitely keep McDonough and Girardi together. Stahl, I don't know who you would want to put him with. I would say probably either Boyle or Yandel if we end up keeping both of those guys. And then Klein would play with whoever else is left. But if we were to trade Boyle, which seems like the most likely one, and you were to bring Graves up, I would say definitely to move Yandel up with with Stahl and then allow Klein to play with Graves, and I think that'd be a solid line because I think Klein could end up mentoring him. I know the way he played offensively, Kevin Klein was probably our best offensive defenseman the entire year. Goal scoring wise, he was definitely the best, but I think overall offensively he was the best, and I think putting Graves up there with a veteran like him would definitely fit in well. And if we do end up trading someone like, if we do end up trading Yandel and we trade both him and Boyle, which would be my hope, then maybe you could put up McElrath, and I would say to probably put McElrath with Stahl and maybe put keep Graves down there with Klein. But we have a long way until we get to that. And as for the backup goaltender, that will be the interesting question, would be where did they go? Many people saw the young man Mackenzie Skapski, as I believe is how you say his name. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, so if that is wrong, I'm sorry. But he played well. I know it was against Buffalo in both the times, but it was a good sign to see him play well against Buffalo. I believe he actually had a shutout, so that's pretty great for him. And I think he is going to be our backup goaltender next year. Now, of course, if the Talbot trade doesn't go through, I don't think there'd be any Ranger fan that would be unhappy about the trade not going through. But as a Ranger fan, it's not that I want to see him get traded. It's more of the fact that I want to see Cam Talbot be able to succeed, because in New York, he's going to be a lifetime backup. There's no way they're going to start him over Hank, and he doesn't deserve to start over Hank, at this point of his career. So, either way, I think that we're going to find a backup goaltender, and I think we'll be set for the future. And lastly, I just want to thank this year's team, all the Rangers that came up and played at a time during this year, all the guys that played in the playoffs, all the guys that played with injuries. I want to thank the coach, Alain Vigneault, who I thought had a good year. Glenn Sather, I do want to thank you, even though we do question some of your choices. We know that you do the best for us that you can, and you try to keep us in contention. And you've gotten us to the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe 3 out of the last 4 years. So I mean, he's clearly doing something right. Good luck to the Rangers, and hopefully we'll rebound next year and go get that Stanley Cup. And a reminder, guys, you can watch my show every Wednesday. I go through the leading stories in sports. And I thank you for watching this. Follow me on Twitter @FutureTarHeel and on Instagram @Anthony_Pagnotta96.